Oh, what's up guys? I'm back at you guys with another tutorial. This one is a massive tutorial and it's like a electro lead, I guess you would call it. I'm not really sure how to describe it, but yeah, it's an electro lead, and what you heard was just massive and a little bit side compression, sidechain compression by itself, but I do have a wow filter for you guys. I have the wow filter. So at the end of the video I'll go into the settings of the wow filter with you guys. So I'll play it now with the wow filter, or let me play it real quick without the wow filter. Now I'm gonna add it in. So yeah, just you can see that the wow filter at the end right there just dirties it up even more. Okay, so now that I've shown you guys the sound, because I always like to do that at the beginning of the video. I don't know why other YouTubers don't just show you the sound before they make it, but whatever. So this is the patch right here that I made, and this will be available on my Facebook, so just go there and give me a like. It helps me out there too. I'm very new to I guess what you would call social media, so you know, I've been producing for years, but it wasn't until like last month that I made a YouTube channel, made a SoundCloud, made a Facebook page and all that. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's really given me a sense of community of producers. So whatever, enough about that. Let's get into this. So okay, on oscillator 1 here we have a grown 1, and this is on a bend minus sort of circuitry. This is down an octave, so if you hold down Option while selecting this, so you can move down the octaves like that. So that was down 1 octave. Wavetable position is sort of around there. Intensity, amp, notice all those things. And our this is between filter 1 and 2, so right there in the middle. Of course, assuming that that will be your default when you go to new sound in massive, as you should have before doing all this. And oscillator 2 here, now that, oh, okay, well, also on oscillator 1 we do drag in envelope 3 into this box and bring that up an octave, and I'll go over the envelope 3 right now since we're talking about it. So as you can see, the attack is all the way down, the level right here is all the way down, and our release is sort of right around there. So get that down and just drag it into this box right here and bring it up an octave. And let's see. Okay, so then we have on oscillator 2 here a psi triangle, and the wavetable is sort of pointing at the 0 right here. And notice the intensity where it's at, and notice that the amp is all the way down, and we bring in a little macro from here, so you can click on this crosshair, bring it in, and you know, place it wherever you like if you're using a MIDI keyboard or whatever, or if you're using Ableton's key mode. So yeah, notice that if you don't want this macro, just notice the position that it's in here and just put the amp level to the same position there if you don't want this little yellow macro. And let's see. So this is down an octave. We did the same with bringing in the envelope macro here, and this is on spectrum, so you don't have to worry about bend minus on this one. And this is in the same position between filter 1 and 2 as oscillator 1. Okay, so now for oscillator 3, our last oscillator, obviously. This is a acid wave right here, so I love this. I love to use this one, especially on electro stuff. Oh shit, my face. Sorry guys, I did not turn off all my other computers and cell phones, so whatever. So okay, my bad. Acid. So acid's a great waveform and a great thing itself, and we're gonna bring this down an octave on right here in oscillator 3, dragging our macro. Notice where these are at and where the filter is at, and that's that. So now let's move on to our filters. Filter 1 is just oh, and one more thing, I did a little differently in this one. So my usually by default the this little parallel and serial routing thing. It's pretty much something that does with the filters, so how it plays them. It's kind of a routing thing. I'm not too good at explaining this sort of thing, but I brought it up from parallel to serial, so that filters will kind of play in a different order, sorta. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. And so this is a scream filter, and cutoff is brought up all the way to around here, and the scream is kind of pointing back at it, and reso is sort of pointing at the R, and I drag this up all the way, and I brought in a LFO 5, so I just clicked on an LFO right here, brought it in, and dragged it down to the so that it would be going. See this little line right here? You want to push this all the way up until this white line is kind of right there. And so yeah, and then also drag that LFO, that same LFO, into the scream on the first box, and bring it up to there. So then you have this little LFO here, which I'll go over right now. So it's just a ratio of 1 to 2, amp all the way up. X fade is kind of a little bit above halfway for this, and these are the waveforms I'm using. So that's that, very simple. And then we also bring in a envelope 2. So these are the settings for that. Attack is kind of right here. Decay and level are kind of right here. I think it's funny that I keep saying it's right here, obviously, because you guys can obviously see that and copy it, but whatever. Doing tutorials is kind of funny sometimes. And so yeah, now just bring this little envelope 2 and drag it up all the way, so you just get that blue right there following the green. And that is our filter 1 and the envelope and LFOs for it. Filter 2, band reject. Push this up all the way. Cutoff is kind of pointing at the F in filter, sorta. Band reject, you see where that's at. Reso, you get the picture. And for our mix 1 and 2, this is pretty much at halfway if you look at where I have the macro that I dragged into this box. So I just brought this knob all the way up and brought in this macro, and it's sort of halfway right there if you don't want the macro. If not, I suggest you copy it down anyway. It's fun to have macros. And okay, so I'm gonna go in a kind of weird order here and go to our routing, just to show you guys where the insert 1 and insert 2 are in around our filter structure right here, and blah blah blah. So get that. If yours doesn't match mine for some reason, then just be glad I went there and showed you guys the routing. And for our voicing, this is a 16:4 on monorate, on legato thriller. And you can see that I turned on all these little boxes right here to utilize some of this stuff right here. So you can see that the pan position is a little bit off to the left from mono. Our wavetable is kind of right. I'll zoom in on this so you guys can see where that is if you guys want to be precise. And same with the pitch cutoff, it's not all the way to the right, to the left. Okay, actually it is all the way to the left, but I dragged in this little parameter here so you can copy that. And let's see, okay, oscillator, I did fuck around with this oscillator phasing, which is pretty much when the waveform will play, or where it plays in that waveform is sort of how I think of it. So think of it like this: if I turn this off and when I turn it on, it changes the starting points for each oscillator. So it's kind of, I use it to efficiently give me the same sound or to mess up the sound a bit, but you know, use it wisely. It's a cool tool, but it's not to be fucked with sometimes. So as you can see, my oscillator 1 is all the way at 0, so that means since this is a grown waveform, that it starts at the beginning of that waveform. And then oscillator 2 starts around a little bit past 90, just a little bit past it. And that means that the side triangle kind of starts a little bit later after the oscillator has a little later in the waveform. So I wish I had like a picture or a diagram that I could show you guys of what I mean, but just trust me that if you play around with this and use your ears, you'll still get cool results, even if you don't completely understand what it does visually, because I think it's good to have that visual representation of what it's doing in your head, but whatever. And oscillator 3 is just a little bit past that, and I don't even know why I brought this up, because my modulation oscillator is not even on. But if you want to turn it on and use it, I think that's why I had it there, but I didn't even do anything there, so whatever. Okay, so I've covered all this stuff now. Let's get into our feedback now. So feedback, I just kind of brought up so that this little knob is kind of pointing at the arrow right here. I brought in another macro, but if you notice where the macro is, you can just add this amount of knobs, so it's kind of, without the macro, it's probably pointing like right there, if you get what I'm saying, like the position of this and where that takes it there, whatever, but you get the point. Now for insert 1, we have a parabolic shaper, or parabolic shaper, I don't know, people all over the world say it differently. And dry wet, notice where that is. I have a little macro there as well, so that controls the amp here too, so it just gives me a little bit more bass, or sub to be specific. And the drive is kind of right around, 3 o'clock. And for our second insert, this is a sine shaper, so I kind of like to use parabolic and sine shaper back to back. I don't know, it's sort of a thing that a lot of people just do. Like theoretically it should be messy when you have these two things together, but it sounds really good if you're going for that messy stuff. So dry wet, drive, notice where that is. I dragged in a different macro right here into this box right here to the drive, so you guys can use that tastefully however you guys want. And okay, so let's see, oscillators, inserts, filters, all that. Okay, FX, last thing. So our FX is just a dimension expander, which just phases one side, or offsets one side a little bit differently, so that it gives a wider impression. So it's kind of like a chorus, but much simpler, I think. So okay, dry wet size, you see where that's at. Reverb, this is kind of, so I got a macro in here too. I brought it up all the way, so if you don't use macros, then that's where the reverb would be without it, but with it, there it is. Size is kind of pointing at the dry wet. Density and color, just dragged it up all the way. Density is not all the way up, but it's like almost all the way up, so notice that. EQ, I just boosted the low shelf a bit, as you can see, and the frequencies and the high shelf are all up too. Notice the macros I dropped in here, so I dropped in 6 into the low shelf and high shelf, and just gave it a little bit of a boost there with the macro, and then I dragged in an 8, so you can kind of make like a sweeping type of sound if you want to automate this macro right here. And that's pretty much it. So it was kind of complex, a lot of stuff going on, but in the end it's just another patch that if you understand everything that's going on, it's just very simple. And this is what you should have. And if you don't have that, well, don't worry, you can go to my Facebook and it'll be there in the downloads. And let's see, now if we go to wow filter, this is kind of what I did here. So I didn't overuse it or anything, it's just one of my old presets that I made a while back, which basically is a band reject. Overdrive is all the way down. The reso is kind of pointing, I guess, where would be like 35 around there. If this is 40 right here in the middle between 30 and 50, then this is kind of like, okay, so maybe like at 40. And our cutoff is kind of a little bit beneath 300, so I guess you would say like 280 if it had like all the numbers displayed. So right around there. Let's see. Have nothing going on in the modulations stuff. Mix is up all the way, and the master is at 150. But you know, when it comes to stuff like master and things like that, that's just volume, you know. So or gain. So you know, you do that accordingly to what you're doing. And of course, it's just one of my basic sidechain compression settings that I always kind of dial in. So it's just a kind of quick attack, so that the threshold of the compressor grabs the sound sooner and compresses it down. And the release is kind of where I always keep it, just a kind of quick release there. Ratio is around 2.71 or 2.72. This is on the FF1 model, and envelope is peak, obviously, and this is at negative 22 dB. And obviously, I'm just getting my audio from a kick drum, because without it, they'll kind of clash. With it, much cleaner. So okay, I know that was kind of, I went on a little long there, talked about several things in between, but you guys know. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe helps me know what you guys like and don't like. And quick little bonus news, I am doing tutorials and such now, more in the intermediate, and well, actually I'm doing similar things on this other channel. So I upload now onto ABLETONLIVETECHS 2, so ABLETONLIVETECHS on YouTube. So go there; they're a good channel, and it's funny. I used to watch their tutorials and stuff, and they just asked me out of the blue if I wanted to start uploading on their channel. I was like, yes, sure, why not? So go there, guys. I'll have everything in the description that you guys need, and thanks for watching, guys.